Welcome to As the Key Turns. I'm David Lehman. I spent 23 years at the Supermaximum prison located in Marion, Illinois. Now, the Supermax prison at Marion at some point transitioned into a medium security prison. Now, so basically there's two kinds of prisons there, and this thing that we're about to talk about, which is drugs in prison, there's going to be two completely separate answers. What I mean by that, there's the before the transition and after the transition periods. So first of all, let's talk about the before transition period. That's when, the John Gotti mafioso was there, the spies, the really famous bank robbers, the serial killers, the maximum security inmates, the super maximum security inmates. That's when they were there. Let's talk about that first. Drugs in prison. We tested the prisoners continuously, a lot. And the only times that we had prisoners test positive for drug use in those days was when the prisoner went outside for something. Like he had to go to court, say he went to Missouri to go to court, or Washington, D.C. to go to court, or he had to testify at something somewhere. And he was able to use drugs outside of our fence. Then when he came back, he tested positive. Because when you leave and when you come back, they test you. They test you before you go, they test you when you come back. And all our positives, or most of our positives, were that. And the other positives were inmates when we first got them. Say they were sent to us from the Atlanta Maximum Security Penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia. He might test positive because they have a lot of drugs in Atlanta. Now, the second part of this is after the transition. That scenario changed significantly. Then the visiting room was the main perpetrator. It came to the visiting room. Before, when we had the super maximum security inmates, the manner in which they had a visit was we would take them down to the visiting room, strip search them, give them a different set of clothes than when they went in to the visiting room, and then they wore that set of clothes during the entire visit. And when the visit was over, and this is a non-contact visit, you sit in a little concrete booth surrounded with glass above your waist and a little desk sort of thing, and on the other side is a person that has a little, I don't even know how to describe it. It was kind of like a U, and the back part of the U was a glass, and they could see the person they were visiting, the inmate there. Excuse me. So they had no opportunity to pass them anything because they never touched them. And that used to bother our old Supermax security inmates, and they would tell a lot of their family, don't come visit. I don't want you to see me in a place like this. So, kind of what they did, they just didn't visit a lot either. And those that did never had an opportunity to pass drugs. Now, after the transition, of course, they had contact visits. Like this lady or the whole little kids and everything could surround the inmate and give them a hug and a kiss and all kinds of stuff. So that gave opportunities for them to pass all kind of drugs. You know, you give a guy a kiss, then you put a bunch of balloons of heroin in your mouth, and then you shove it into his mouth while you're kissing him, and then he swallows it. And later on, he goes and retrieves them, and now he's got all kinds of heroin inside. That's one way. Another way, which is the least savory way, the one that really pisses me off and irritates me to no end and makes me angry, is bad staff. And yes, after the transition, we had staff that went bad, over to the dark side, became felons, criminals. So some of the staff that I worked with, and this was a rare individual. We're not talking about a lot of people and like all of a sudden everybody's a crook. They started to become less trustworthy. In the old days, we just walked right through the front door. After the transition, they had to search me, physically search me. They looked through all of my, like say my lunchbox or anything that I brought in was examined by x-ray, or they looked at it, because we were no longer trusted, because somebody would bring in contraband, drugs, cell phones, beepers. And this was brought in not only through the visiting room, but some of this stuff like cell phones and beepers and things were brought in by staff. And that's what irritates the shit out of me, is that I could no longer trust everybody that I worked with. There were people where I, rightly or wrongly, very much didn't trust them. I wouldn't want to be around them. I avoided them because I suspected that they had some inappropriate relationship with some of the inmates. See, before we worked together in a team of 3. So it would be me and almost always 2 other people and at least 1 other person. So that if I was of the bend to be a criminal and bring things in, weapons or drugs for the inmates, it wouldn't have been possible under the old Supermax system. Under the new medium security system, I was alone with 120 inmates for almost all of my shift. So had I have wanted to do all kinds of things wrongly with the inmates, I would have been unobserved by any other staff member. And that's exactly the kind of thing that happened. Now, in many cases, not all, in many cases, when the staff member went bad, it wasn't because he intended to be a criminal. He, through circumstances, became a criminal. What I mean is, let's take a female. This particular female, and I have a video about her, this particular female, she's a very gregarious, outgoing person, and she overshares. At least in this environment, it's oversharing. Maybe in your office, she would have fit right in. She'd be a great gal to have hanging around the office. But in this penitentiary, inmates, especially for women, they're attempting to manipulate you at all times. They want things from the staff. They want weapons and drugs and cell phones and sex if you're female. And if you're gay, well, not meaning the staff member, meaning if the inmate is gay, he wants sex from the male staff members as well. So they manipulate situations to their advantage to try to get you into where you're compromised. And here's one way that that could happen. Hey, officer, my mother was in Texas, and you've recently heard about these horrible storms they had in Texas, and I think that she was in one of those areas. Could you look up and see if this particular address in Texas was affected by the storm? Go ahead and do that. Now he knows a date and time and something that you did on the internet. Now another inmate's going to come up and ask you for something else. Hey, would you look up this? Would you look up that? And when you do it, now they know a particular date and time of something that you did on the internet. It's researchable. At noon on Friday, he looked up storms in Texas. We know that. And the cybersecurity guy at the penitentiary can look that up in seconds. Yes, that computer was logged in by David Lehman, and he looked up this thing that the inmate said he did. Okay. Well, after they do that enough times, then they come in and they tell you something like, we want you to look up child porn. I'm not going to look up child porn. Oh, yes, you will. Because if you don't, we're going to say that you have been. And we're going to get a big investigation going on you. And they do that. They tell the another staff member, hey, that David Lehman guy over there, he's been looking up this at a certain date and time, and he looked up that at a certain date and time, and he looked up this other thing at a certain date and time, and then he was looking up child porn, but I remember it was like on this particular day, I think, or maybe it was the next day. We're not exactly sure of the time. Well, when the cybersecurity guy looks it up, the first 3 things that they talked about was exactly what they said, exactly when they said it. And so it must be true that the 3 things that they said were true. So the 4th thing must be true. Well, now we have to have an investigation, and we got to get old David Lehman out of there. So let's call in the cops and have them escort him off the property while we do this investigation, because, you know, we can't have a guy in there looking up child porn with a bunch of child molesters. Well, it looks really bad, and the other staff see that. And so now the inmates have credibility. Hey, you're going to do this thing for us, or you're going to get walked out just like that other guy got walked out. And so what will eventually happen is they'll say, okay, well, we don't want you to look up child porn, we want drugs. So you bring in drugs. First, you just bring in marijuana. No big deal, right? It's just marijuana. It's only a felony. You could only go to prison for it. Oh, now we want heroin and cocaine. And we're going to get you in contact with a guy that can give you this stuff. You know, one of our gang members, you know, the Latin King member, the Aryan Brotherhood member, the Black Guerrilla Family gang member, the you name it member, the ABC company, you know, gang that I'm affiliated with. They're going to drop off these drugs and you're going to bring it in. That's why they're searching us at the gate, because they can't trust us anymore, because we are bringing in drugs and weapons. You know, what's the difference between bringing in a revolver and a bag of marijuana? Not a lot. Or a big knife to cut somebody's throat with. All these things have been done before. So that's the huge difference between the good old days of the Supermax security prison and the bad old days of the medium security prison, which was a sex offender unit. So 50% of the people that I was dealing with were there for sex offenses, you know, raping the hookers, 3- and 4-year-old children. True story. The guy that cleaned my office, he was there because he paid a prostitute to allow him to rape her 3-year-old son and 4-year-old daughter. That's the guy that I had in my cell house. And you don't think that he would have, given the opportunity, manipulated me into allowing or forcing me into bringing him child pornography for him to, you know, satisfy his lust for children? Certainly he would have. And they didn't trust me either. And then they started drug testing us. Now, story about that. They urinalysis us. They give us a urinalysis. One of the guys that I'm working with, he turns up hot. That's what we call it, hot. For not cocaine, it was opioids. Opioids. Could be heroin, could be, you know, a lot of things. So he says, oh, I absolutely didn't do it. Absolutely. They said, fine. We have a way to disprove or to prove, to confirm this thing. Now, if you're absolutely, we want you to sign a thing, and this thing says that you understand that you are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law for lying under an investigation if we can prove that in fact you did have these drugs. And so he signs this thing. Yeah. They can't prove anything. What are they going to do? Follow me around? No. Your hair keeps a record of the opioids. And after he signs it, and they give him the 3rd degree about, hey man, we're going to get you if you're lying. Oh, I'm not lying. I got to keep my job. Yeah, you can't fire me because I didn't do any of that. Well, now we're going to take a sample of your hair. Oh shit. Well, he went home and, like everybody does from occasionally, they shaved off every hair on his body that he could possibly shave off. I mean, everybody does that, right? I mean, every guy has shaved off his eyebrows, all the hair on his body, everything that he could reach. He even got a little stick, put his razor on the back so he could shave the little fuzz off his back. I mean, everybody does that. Every couple of months or so? Don't we all do that? Yeah. So he shaved off all the hair that he could, and they still said, well, we're going to have the physician assistant look over all of you, like maybe your butt crack. Maybe you missed a few hairs. We only need a few hairs. I quit. He was guilty as hell. He was stoned out of his mind while he was working with me. This dirty, no good scum was allowed to not go to jail for what he did, even though they told him that he would. They make all these baseless threats. Look, when they tell a guy that you'll get to keep your job if we can't prove that you have drugs, sign a thing, and if you're lying under an official investigation, and that's 5 years. That's what they did to some lady who was on Home Shopping Network or whatever. She lied under an official investigation, had to go to prison for a couple of years. Martha Stewart, that's it. She had to go to prison for lying during an official investigation. Same exact crime that this guy did, except they let him go. Should have prosecuted him. Now the girl, the one that was having sex with the inmates and bringing in phones and drugs, well, she got a couple of years in prison for what she did. And they manipulated her too. Hey, what happened to that other guy? Well, we're going to do the same to you, unless you start giving us, sex and bringing in cell phones. So, yes, we had dirty staff, and they were bringing in drugs, and that's the way some of it got in. Majority probably went through the visiting room, but not all of it. And it turned that job into the kind of place that I wasn't entirely comfortable with my fellow staff. And that's really sad, because prior to the transition, they seemed like some really great guys, and you could literally trust them with your life. After the transition, not everybody fell into that category. Now, there were still people that I felt that way about, many people I felt that way about, but there were many others that I did not feel that way about. And some I was absolutely convinced were doing stuff. How about the guy at the camp? We ended up calling him Mr. Stupid because he was stupid. And he did stupid things. And I never wanted to be around him because he's stupid. He would do something stupid and get us all into trouble. And I would just get swept up in his wave of stupidity. I knew that was going to happen. Well, sure enough, the FBI is watching this guy's used car lot one day because he's laundering drug money through it while he's in the camp, out at the minimum security camp attached to USP Marion. And this guy, he's some kind of psychologist dude, and he's got to go around with this guy for therapy or some other stupidity, some other lie. And they stop off at his business that he's not supposed to be at. And they discuss the discount that this guy's going to get. He don't even get a free car. He just gets a car at cost. So he saved a couple of $300 or $1,000 or whatever the hell it is that the profit is at a used car when you purchase it. That's what he was going to get. Well, the FBI picks up on why the hell is there an official U.S. government vehicle at this drug laundering business? Let's look into that. And then they find out Mr. Stupid and this guy are involved in some kind of scam to allow him to run his drug business more efficiently while giving this Mr. Stupid a discounted car. He sold his soul for a discounted car. Well, he lost his job. They called out there to the university where he worked at and teaching part-time, and he lost that job. He lost everything, all because he wanted to save a few $100s on a vehicle. He was just a corrupt asshole is what he was. And every one of these people that I just discussed, that same moniker applies to them as far as I'm concerned. You know, I met Chicago cops who came to our camp because they were selling drugs or skimming drug money off of drug addicts. And, you know, they had a lot more experience as policemen than I did. I mean, you know, you run from felony to felony in Chicago, and in the little town of Woodland where I'm at, felony, oh, we had a felony this month, really? Wow, ooh, big deal. You know, so they did in probably a week what I did in maybe a year. That kind of thing. And so these cops would say, oh, well, we used to be cops too, just like you, and oh, but we did all these great things, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. One time this cop said, or this former cop says to me, you know the difference between the kind of cop you was and the kind of cop I was? I said, yeah, I do. I was one of them, how do you call them, honest cops. I was an honest cop, and you sold your badge out. I'm not a bastard. That's why I'm on this side of this uniform and you're on that side. Well, you didn't like me so much after that. Good. Do I hate those people? Absolutely. They marred my profession. You think prison guard, crooks. It's even in songs. I paid a prison guard to sneak out a letter. That's a line out of a song. You know, because all prison guards are crooks because of those few. All prison guards don't beat prisoners to death, but a few do. It's happened. So, you know, I don't like those kinds of people. One guy that was allowing the inmate to skip roll call at the camp to go downtown and stay at a hotel and have sex with his wife because he gave this guy a wristwatch. You sold out for a wristwatch? You know how they caught the guy? The idiot's wife sent him Polaroid photos of him and her in a motel room with the phone book sitting on the countertop with the year that he was supposed to be in prison. Oops. So, you see, that's how they got caught. And of course, when they get caught, they're going to tell all about what they did with you, Mr. Correctional Officer, and thank goodness they do. So, there you go. Another one of my long, boring stories. If you would hit the subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. I'm sure it won't kill you. And hit the thumbs up, too, while you're at it. And thanks for listening.